Ayọ̀ Adékúnlé. Ohun tí mo lè sọ ṣáàní wípé Olúwa jọ ẹ́ lójú gidi gan. Ọmọ wọn ní làjẹsẹ̀ odò lórí omi. Àlóhùn tí mo lè sọ ṣáàní wípé Olúwa jọ ẹ́ lójú gidi gan. Ó ṣe lérí ayọ̀, ó sì mú ṣẹ. Thank you my Jesus, thank you my Lord. Àlóhùn tí mo lè sọ ṣáàní wípé Olúwa jọ ẹ́ lójú gidi gan. Ó ṣe lérí ayọ̀, ó sì mú ṣẹ. Thank you my Jesus, thank you my Lord. Àlóhùn tí mo lè sọ ṣáàní wípé Olúwa jọ ẹ́ lójú gidi gan. Ó ṣe lérí ayọ̀, ó sì mú ṣẹ. Thank you my Jesus, thank you my Lord. Àlóhùn tí mo lè sọ ṣáàní wípé Olúwa jọ ẹ́ lójú gidi gan. Ó ṣe lérí ayọ̀, ó sì mú ṣẹ. Thank you my Jesus, thank you my Lord. Owó bàbá Michael. Àlóhùn tí o lè sọ ṣáàní wípé Olúwa jọ ẹ́ lójú gidi gan. Ó ṣe lérí ayọ̀, ó sì mú ṣẹ. Thank you my Jesus, thank you my Lord. Alile alokano sabi bilijalika. Pásítọ̀ Adékúnlé ẹ̀rín ayọ̀ mi àyànfẹ́. Ọmọ wọn ní làjẹsẹ̀ odò. Ẹni tọ́lọ́run bá pè tó rán níṣẹ́. Ọlọ́run bẹ́ẹ̀kú sẹ́ẹ̀kú. Ọlọ́run mo ti tìyọ́ morí mọ́ládé. Mo ní padà lẹ́yìn rẹ̀ bàbá o. Ohun tí mo lè sọ ṣáàní wípé Olúwa jọ ẹ́ lójú gidi gan. Ó ṣe lérí ayọ̀, ó sì mú ṣẹ. Thank you my Jesus, thank you my Lord. Àlóhùn tí mo lè sọ ṣáàní wípé Olúwa jọ ẹ́ lójú gidi gan. Ó ṣe lérí ayọ̀, ó sì mú ṣẹ. Thank you my Jesus, thank you my Lord. Àlóhùn tí mo lè sọ ṣáàní wípé Olúwa jọ ẹ́ lójú gidi gan. Ó ṣe lérí ayọ̀, ó sì mú ṣẹ. Thank you my Jesus, thank you my Lord. Àlóhùn tí mo lè sọ ṣáàní wípé Olúwa jọ ẹ́ lójú gidi gan. Ó ṣe lérí ayọ̀, ó sì mú ṣẹ. Thank you my Jesus, thank you my Lord. Ànílá alẹ́kẹ̀ náà sànà kankan mọ́ kiri jalẹ́ sàǹdà ìlàlíkà fàǹdà mi lọ́rùn ẹ̀rí òṣè. Àdọ́lá lẹ́fà lẹ́kẹ̀rẹ́fà ndàlíyàlì sàǹdàlíyà. Ìnìjáni ẹ̀mí rẹ̀ aṣọ pọ̀ ọdún láyé àmì ò lọ́lá Ọlọ́run bàbá. Owó bàbá Michael, bàbá Oyinkansola, bàbá Ìfẹ́ Olúwa pẹ̀lẹ́ o. Ohun tí mo lè sọ ṣáàní wípé Olúwa jọ ẹ́ lójú gidi gan. Ó ṣe lérí ayọ̀, ó sì mú ṣẹ. Thank you my Jesus, thank you my Lord. We export household item lóríṣiríṣi. Personal effect, clothing, food and stuffs. Láti Naija wọlú Amẹ́ríkà. Germany, Chicago, shipping and logistics, bàbá ni. Oúnjẹ látàfíkà lóríṣiríṣi. Dry meat, dry fish, báwo lẹ ṣe fẹ́ sí? We export goods láti Amẹ́ríkà wọ Naija. Ìròyìn ò tá fojú bẹ̀yìn ta Amẹ́ríkà. Ẹ̀yin ti New York, ẹ̀yin ti New Jersey. Ẹ kàn sí journalic lórí email address. Níkẹ́ Kókà 27 àti Abuja.com journalic logistics bàbá ní.
bó ṣe máa jẹ́ nìyẹn ẹ̀yin ti New Jersey ẹ kàn sí wa ní Prince Street, Newark, New Jersey, USA tàbí kẹ́pẹ́ wá sórí +19 082055 863 nílùú Èkó ń bí. Àdírẹ́sì wa ní nọ́mbà 20 Ẹ̀kọ̀rọ̀ Road, Old Ọ̀tà Road, Abúlé Ẹ̀gbá, Lagos. Ẹ pè Jùmọ̀kẹ́ sórí +234 813 099 0915 tàbí Múyìwá sórí +234 814 659 1874 at journalic. Ọ̀gá nìkan láwùjọ òkúta.
Right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are watching us from. My name remains Samuel Oludari Yerokun, and you are on to OY Media Scotland. Today, we'll be having Alagba Femi Odedeyi, as usual, is your usual guest. He's from the Yoruba Referendum Committee, and if you are right there in Nigeria, as well as Nigerians in diaspora, we know that we've entered year 2020, and of course, political activity starts in earnest this year, ahead of next year presidential election in Nigeria. Of course, we'll also be having governorship election, that is the gubernatorial elections in Osun and Ekiti states. So that means 2022 is actually the year for election, the start of the election in Nigeria. However, from the Yoruba Self-Determination groups, some groups have been making moves just the same way that politicians are making moves. Alagba Femi Odedeyi will be speaking to us today about these moves. That is, he will be analyzing some of the permutations and activities that are being done. We'll be looking at them together to see whether the Yorubas are actually placing themselves or aligning themselves aright in a way that will be beneficial for the self-determination that has been much spoken about. Of course, he will also be giving us updates about the Yoruba Referendum Committee. So do stay on with me, and I'll get him in a second. Right, you are most welcome to the program, sir.
Yeah, thank you, and once again, Happy New Year
Happy
to
New Year.
you and your family and everyone that is watching us and everyone that will continue to watch us. So I say Happy New Year to everyone, and all our expectations and aspirations will be achieved, and we will all be blessed. Thank you very much.
Amen, amen, and amen. Thank you very much, and Happy New Year from our end here. And obviously, thank you very much for always coming on the program in the past over 1 year. And just like I've mentioned, Yoruba Referendum Committee, you are the coordinator, and of course, activities are starting to kick off in Nigeria, especially regarding election. So we're going to shoot that straight on, and I'm going to take up some of the news and get your opinions about them. The first one that I'll be talking about would be that of the issue between Ilana Omo and the lawyer of the organization, stroke that of Sunday Igbo. In Professor Banji Akitoye's uh, New Year message to the Yoruba people, he made a statement that there won't be election in Yoruba land. That is, the elections that are meant to take place in Osun and Ekiti later this year. And that did not go down well with the lawyer, who obviously fired back, obviously on the pages of newspaper and on social media, that the people have a right to vote, and the organization cannot say there will be no election. I mean, there was quite so much noise about it, and later on, Professor Banji Akitoye now actually explained that the statement that there won't be election in Ekiti and Osun states, that they were going to follow the legal routes, that they were not planning to destabilize the country or to destabilize Yoruba land, and they are not seeking violence from anybody, but that they will be going through the courts, both in Osun and Ekiti. So I'll take my first question from there. If Ilana Omodua has issued a force majeure on Nigeria, and that is to say that they believe that the constitution is no longer valid. However, this same constitution uh, actually set up the courts and the judiciary system in Nigeria. So, what would be your opinion on the statement by Ilana Modua that they will be going to the court under that same constitution to seek for the court to stop the election in Osun and Ekiti states?
Well, it's that is the product of what I would call a political deficiency. And this is not meant to be a critique or an insult on anyone. In the first instance, Baba Professor Akintoye is not only a historian, he was, I mean, academic historian, but he was also an active participant in the action group activities in the 60s when he was at the University of Ibadan. And later on, he became the assistant secretary, I think, of the UPN. So he was a very solid participant in all the activities that went on at that time. And in the 60s, as a member of the UPN youth movement, he was also involved and he knew about the outcome of the 1964 boycott that was embarked upon by the United Progressive Grand Alliance, which was the alliance between the AG at that time and the NCNC, where, again, because of the crisis of the Nigerian state, the AG and the NCNC decided to boycott the election. But the boycott was successful in the East because the NCNC had what one can call total control of the East. But in the West, there was a division between the action group. We all know about the Akintola Awolowo feud at that time. And therefore, when they were going to do all those things, the boycott failed, and that allowed the NNDP to declare victory or to be declared victorious. That, as a background, is a practical experience which ought to have informed on whatever is being done today. which unfortunately did not. In the first instance, and we have said it before, even from the very beginning, when the Ninas, of which Ilana was a member, that's the nationality, Ninas, something about some kind of coalition. When they declared the constitutional force majeure, that it was a joke, that our opposition to the 1999 constitution, or any constitution for that matter, is a political issue. It's not a contract, excuse me, it's not a contract between two commercial entities, of which force majeure applies. That even, although I'm not a lawyer, so let me put it that clear, but although it's not a technical issue as such, that even if it were to be a contract, force majeure implies that one side of the contract cannot perform the responsibilities assigned to it due to forces of nature. But the peoples of Nigeria have no contract with anybody. So whom are we declaring a force majeure against? So if the 1999 constitution had been carried out in a referendum in Nigeria, for example, a pan-Nigeria referendum or plebiscite or whatever, and then some felt aggrieved about it, they feel aggrieved and then they want to do something about it, they can start talking about that. But there was nothing of such. There was no agreement on any constitution that gives anyone any specific responsibility. What we had in 1999 was that the military just came. The man that became president, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, did not even know the contents. Although as a military man, a retired general, I'm sure he would have been briefed in the background. But on the political scale, no one saw the document. No one knew what it contained. And we have been operating with it ever since. And so for someone or an organization to now say is declaring a force majeure to which they are not is it a participant, is just, that's why I called it a joke. Now, having said that, when the issue now comes to, okay, you said there will be no elections and all that, with all this background, and then they want to go to the court to declare whatever it is they want to declare. I mean, the judge is a product of the Constitution. So you are now going to the court to tell the judge that you have no rights to adjudicate on this matter. Because the judge is a product of the Constitution, you are declaring a conflict with the Constitution. You are saying it's not acceptable, and you are now asking the judge to say it's not acceptable. You are indirectly asking the judge that, look, you can't even sit on your seat. You can't even judge, because you are telling the judge to declare his seat unconstitutional. Anyway, they can argue that out. You know, it's part of the political drama and stuff like that. But the essence of it is the political lesson we need to draw from that. Again, this is not a critique of Ilana or any other person, but this will be the second time that Ilana will fall into that experience. The first time was initially when they said they are out of Nigeria or something like that. And then, you know, all the crisis and all that. And Governor Akeredolu said, you know, where did the Yoruba people decide on anything that Ilana will be making such a pronouncement? And then Ilana backed down and then said that they are not asking to secede and gave their own reasons. So in a similar manner, you have the same thing. They just came out, okay, there will be no elections in Osun and Ekiti. And then when people started asking, what is the problem? And even their lawyer that you mentioned said, look, people have the right to vote and all that. Then they said, no, we are not saying there should be We are just going to go to court to act. So you can see a lack of strategic consistency. And I'm saying that it should not have been so. Even if simply because of the experience that Baba Akintoye has, that can play a role. Because with someone like Baba Akintoye, like I said, let's forget about his academic issues, that he is a professor. He's still a professor. I mean, but he was an active participant in a previous boycott. And he would have been privy of all the pitfalls that emanated from such, and then apply it to current circumstances and see whether we can embark on the same route or not. Plus, in Anambra State, we know what happened in Anambra State. IPOB said they are going to burn down the whole thing. They are going to do this. There are going to be no elections. Everybody must stay at home. But as elections started nearing, they started changing their tune. Okay, we are not saying people shouldn't go out. We are just saying people should decide whether they want to go out or why did you issue a statement for them in the first instance? Anyway, up to the time of the elections, and then we see what happened. Everybody rallied around what I would call the Igbo party, the ABGA. And they conducted the elections, and everybody is smiling now. And then they went back to the trenches, which again is a reflection of what happened in 1964. That for whatever it is worth, one can say that ABGA represents what I would call the Igbo party of today. I mean, in general, let's just put it that way. And with all the gra-gra and all the, everything that they did, it was a smooth ride for their party to become victorious in Anambra State. And here we are in Yoruba land, not even making a connection between the two, that is 1964 and now, and what happened in Anambra State. And we are still going about saying there will be no election. We are going to do this. We are going to do that. And then, unless they have the capacity to shut the whole place down, what will happen, which I pray will not happen, I mean, ABGA or any party will have a candidate. Meanwhile, we will have neutralized APC or PDP, the two major contending forces in Yoruba land. And then somebody will just come and become, and we will have, I mean, this is just the extreme. We say we don't want the Fulani, and then they put up a Fulani governor, and then we start running around. Anyway, that is just, an extreme position, a Fulani governor and Igbo governor, or a Yoruba governor and the deputy, Fulani deputy, any kind of permutation. So anything can happen. So what we are saying, with all humility and respect, is that Ilana is in a vantage position simply because the leader of the group was a major participant in all the experiences that brought Yoruba land to its knees. Not in the negative sense. So he was in the action group, he was in the UPN, and not just being there, he played major roles. He was an executive of the action group youth movement in the 60s during the crisis we are talking about. He was the assistant secretary of the UPN and actually drafted the UPN Constitution in 1978. So he's not a stranger to crisis. He's not a stranger to political strategies. He's not a stranger to the failures or the limitations of the past. So but the problem is those experiences are not being brought to bear on what is going on today. And that is the unfortunate thing about it. And I hope Ilana will probably do some house searching and try to correct whatever shortcomings that may be obvious. If not to them, at least to those of us on the outside who are watching. We are outsiders looking in. So something along that line. So I hope that answers
Yes,
your question.
thank you very much. And that means straight away that even Ilana going to Osun State Court, that's a court which was set up and is currently maintained by the Constitution,
Yeah,
which Ilana is saying that they no longer recognize.
yeah, yeah,
So it's going to, I mean, the court could allow them to come,
yeah,
but it's just like very clear that the court will not stop the election,
mhm,
so to say.
yeah, yeah, something like that. Yes.
Thank you very much for that, sir. I'm setting up some questions. Now,
Not ambush you.
not ambush, but we're just trying to set up some
I'm
couple of
just
things that have been happening so
yes,
that by the time I now have the core question, we'll look
yes,
at all these things that are happening.
yes.
Of recent, we have, I think, Alkoya group, another Yoruba self-determination group. We had I think the spokesperson, Mrs. Oladimeji Medinat. Of recent, she actually attacked Femi Falana, who happens to be a what I say, human rights activist, and of course also a lawyer of no name in Nigeria. Of course, Chief Falana was one of the persons that have actually asked the Yorubas where which referendum that have been conducted for any group to state that this is what Yoruba wants. He spoke about that, and of course also the governor of Ondo State, who happens to be the chairman of the governors in the southwest. So he sort of attacked. She sort of attacked Chief Falana's opinion that he believes that those people that are calling for Yoruba nation simply wants to transfer the national repression into regional repression. That is the same thing that is happening in the national stage, where the few at the top are oppressing those below them, which are the general masses of Nigeria. That's exactly what those people that are calling for Yoruba nation, that they want to set themselves in place and oppress the people. Now, I know this is going to be your opinion. Now, when you look at that statement from Chief Falana's argument, I want you to give us an opinion about it. And secondly, the sort of attack from Halkoya spokesperson that Chief Falana is just saying that because he's benefiting from the Nigerian system and he doesn't want us to have Yoruba nation. So I want to give you your opinion on both.
Yeah, thank you. I will combine the two questions with one answer. And here it is. One, Femi Falana has never been in support of self-determination. Right from the days he was in the CDHR, CD, and all that, because in those days, Femi Falana is consistent. Let me put it that way. Because since those days, what he was saying was that those who are agitating for autonomy or regionalism or anything simply will transfer what is happening in Nigeria to the regions. The only problem with his analysis is that so we are not saying we want to replicate Nigeria in any region. So there is no region, at least for us, we are not saying, okay, we have a Yoruba region. There's a capital somewhere. and everybody will be going there to collect money. I mean, monthly allocations, so as is happening in Nigeria. So that's the problem with his analysis. And at every moment, it has been pointed out to him that, you see, when the structure changes, it changes the nature of the problem. Now, there's a difference between having a society where there is oppression or economic exploitation. That's a general, universal experience of humanity. The question is, what are the solutions to it? So it is in the solutions that we now pinpoint the particularities. Say, for example, we are talking about money bag politics for Nigeria. So what we are saying is, if we have our own autonomy and then we have a parliamentary system, there's no need for money bag politics. So automatically, you don't need to be a money bag to win elections in your locality. So that takes care of that problem. That's just one example.
Okay.
So, but the problem with the Falanos, or with Falana himself, is that there's a political tendency in the world that sees agitations for national liberation or national autonomy as a divisive influence in the society, and that all they need to do is to get the working people, according to their definition, workers and peasants and everybody, to take over power. Again, there's a deficiency in historical parallels in that. And everything I'm saying about Femi Falana today, now at this point, is what had been said to him privately and publicly over time since he started his so it's not, I'm not just talking about him. So that is their logic. But then when you look at the history of Nigeria itself and the trajectory of the workers, peasants, and number one, there are no peasants in Nigeria. Let's be clear about that. Yes, we have subsistence agriculture, we have rural farming, but the definition of a peasantry is different from what obtains, that a peasantry is subservient to the landlord, to the landowner. So it's a sort of serfdom where they have no rights of their own. You can go to your farm, I mean, under normal circumstances, to your village, get a land from one's grandfather or family, or even buy land from them and start your subsistence farming. That doesn't make you a peasant farmer. So to even come around to say that you want to organize peasants, the question is, where are the peasants that you want to organize? That is one. Number two, to say that you want to organize workers, wage earners and stuff like that. Yes, there are wage earners in Nigeria. But you see, where the theories apply is when the workers, that is the productivity of the workers, determine the economic fit of the state. If all the Nigerian workers go on strike today, Nigeria will still sell its oil, make its money, and still distribute money to the state governments. It is just that the workers will not have their own salaries because they are on strike. Although most of them are not even being paid with what they have, but that's a different thing. So when you now import, to use the word advisedly, when you don't apply the fundamentals of a theory to your situation, the result is what you have. And we have had that during the SAP crisis in Nigeria, when everybody just, SAP and everything. Yes, the labor movement was a little bit active at that point, the Nigerian Labour Congress. And then, workers went on strike and all that. But what happened at the end of the day? That everything that has been happening since the return of the military in 1984, if the theory is going to be applied, that is, if the theory is correct, that you want to mobilize workers and peasants, there ought to have been at least a workers or labor party that will have its political influence on the society, and that cannot even be declared illegal by any military government. And if you look at the countries in Europe where this happened, all the social democratic parties and the labor parties, they grew out of the struggles of these workers. And even when we talk about China, China was a largely peasant. Mao's army was a peasant army. So they were able to drive off their elites. So, but you find at every point, either the government will crack down on the NLC and the NLC will scatter, and then they will come back, and then they will do this, they will do that. And for Falana himself, when in 1999, when the national question, as I would put it, became dominant, and Afenifere AD became dominant in the West, through the local government elections and all that. And they were told, including the late Chief Awehimi, before he formed the National Conscience Party, take advantage of this situation, that because of your stand in the society, you can become a force to reckon with within the emerging political scenario. They dismissed it. They didn't, they said, all the kind of theories they wanted to say. So by 2003, when everything has scattered, that was when Femi Falana now went to contest for election in Ekiti State. And of course, he lost woefully. Because the momentum that they ought to have taken advantage of was in 1998-99. But they were busy, theorizing on such things. And they didn't take advantage of it before Chief Awehimi formed this National Conscience Party, and then they ran into their own crisis, and then, blah, blah, blah. And then by 2003, I think it was 2003 or 2007, I'm not sure which one of the two now, he now went to Ekiti and said he wants to contest for governorship election. And they just, defeated him flatly. So I'm saying all this, like I said, this is not a warning, that is, it's not a gossip. And it's not even a critique. It's a statement of reality. It's a statement of engagement. So Femi Falana is not a strange party to us. I mean, in general. So these are the issues, but because these things are not necessarily public knowledge, at one point, Femi Falana was advocating what he called fiscal federalism. He said, why do we need a region? We should just advocate for fiscal federalism. How can you get fiscal federalism in a non-fiscal entity? So these are questions that they fail to address. And then, they run into shall I say, the cover of what he said, that we want to import. How can it even flies in the face of history all over the world, not even in Yoruba land. That one, in Nigeria, we had an experience that was not so. We all know it, the regional system. So even if that is what we are advocating for, we all know that the regional system was different from what obtains today. And then when you want to address issues like that, you look at the context where it is taking place. Okay, in 1966, what the Nzegu people said was that they wanted to fight corruption and tribalism. Okay, by the time, was it the Mohammed coup took place, he also said something about corruption. I think that Gowon and all the rest of them were corrupt. By the time Babangida came, by the time they overthrew Shagari, it was also about corruption and tribalism. By the time Babangida came, it was also about corruption. So everything was about corruption. So it means that if the same problem exists over and over and over and over again, then it means they have not even addressed the fundamental problem. So if that had been the practice, even Buhari himself, they call him a Gaskiabi, who said he's going to kill everybody that is corrupt. And now they say that his government is even more corrupt than the Jonathan administration. So if that had been consistent since 1966, definitely to address it means that cannot be the problem. There must be a different problem that needs to be addressed. And even if that is the problem, it can only mean that those who are addressing it are merely strengthening it. They are not interested in addressing it. And then if you say you want to address it, then you have to come up with a particular way of addressing it. And people are saying, look, let's cut the fiscal issue. Let's address the political issue. And you are now saying, no, you only import what is obtaining before. So it's I think that sums it up. That's why I said both questions, because nobody, like I said, there is a problem of exploitation in the world. It's a human problem. The question is, what particular steps are you doing to address it? In the US, when the crisis came in 1929, when the economy collapsed, they developed their social security system, which they are still tweaking it with today. In Britain, I believe the labor movement through the before and during and after the Second World War instituted different policies that the milk snatcher now came in 1980 and then took some of the milk away. So you have all these things going on, and in Europe, the rest of Europe, you have the rise of the social democratic movement at different points, offering different solutions to the same problem. So to now say that we can't achieve or we should not pursue the political reconfiguration or reconstruction of Nigeria simply because you think that what obtains will be transported to East. Actually, one can say is simply an attempt to saying that people have no capacity to think. And that's unfortunate coming from someone like Falana. But that's the background. So again, it's not an insult, it's just an engagement. He has been consistent with it, and so it's not surprising. But the problem is he's wrong. Very, very, very wrong, right from the beginning up to today.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. We'll go for a short ad break now, and when we come back, we'll look at the second part of the question you've answered, while we now go to the other one that has to do with cooperation among Yoruba Self-Determination group.
Thank you.
So viewers, do stay on with us. We're going for a shorter break now, and when we come back, we will be taking on more questions for Alagba Femi Odedeyi.
èmi ò lọ́nà méjì láyé tó dorin lọ orin ṣá ni iṣẹ́ mi ò tó dá mi lójú ẹ pè wá síbi ayẹyẹ ìyẹn nígbàkúgbà yẹjẹ méjì sá pléyà o Oṣùọjọ Ọlá mi mẹ́tì ló ń pèdè ẹ̀mújó akọrin bí ẹni jẹ̀kọ́ o ìjòyà. Ọlá mi mẹ́tì ló ń pèdè ẹ̀mújó akọrin bí ẹni jẹ̀kọ́ ìjòyà.
bọ̀bọ̀ alóyin lòun àpèdè má pè tànà ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lóde ìbànújẹ́ èèwọ̀ òrìṣà ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ́ba ń jó gbogbo wa ló mọ̀ yẹ ká mú pátì dùn ṣebí tiwa ni àrà ò ní tán nílé alára láíláí. Ilé mo borí, ilé mo bálù, àtàndá ti ṣẹ́kọ̀ náà. Ẹ̀yin tẹ́ ń fẹ́ wa ẹ̀ máa ṣe gan.
ẹ sì tàbí kẹ́pẹ́ wá sórí +19 0820558863 nílùú Èkó ń bí. àdírẹ́sì wa ní nọ́mbà 20 Ẹ̀kọ̀rọ̀ road Old Ọ̀tà road Abúlé Ẹ̀gbá Lagos. ẹ pè Jùmọ̀kẹ́ sórí +234 813 099 0915 tàbí Múyìwá sórí +234 814 659 1874 at Jonadic. ọ̀gá nìkan láwùjọ kúta.
Right, thank you for staying right on with us. We're still right on with Alagba Femi Odedeyi of Yoruba Referendum Committee. You are welcome back, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, just as we're rounding up the other parts, we were talking about Chief Femi Falana and, of course, a response to one of his statements from Koya. Now, you remember that it was Chief Femi Falana also that called for, not that he called for a referendum, but he was actually asking when the Yoruba in general agreed to a particular socio-political solution. So, do you think that is of the opinion that if we have a referendum, majority of the people will not vote for will not vote for Yoruba to be on its own?
Well, the first reaction is I expect Yoruba people to vote for their own region, for their own autonomy. I expect it, but the fact that I expect it doesn't mean it will happen. And that is one of the problems the self-determination movement has to grapple with and address. And this is the reason. Yes, that is our expectation for what I mean from the different gamuts, autonomy and all this, and Yoruba nation now and all that. That's our expectation. But the expectation by itself may not become reality simply because we expect it. And unless we are able to fathom out a way towards achieving it and making sure that we achieve it, it will just remain an expectation. And we have seen it again on what is happening on ground. From Buhari, who will say he doesn't understand what restructuring means, that which essentially means that he has not been reading any newspaper, to Femi Falana, who will say you want to import what is going on in Nigeria to this, to those who will go to the United Nations and say, yeah, come and help us. So we want a referendum for this. So you can see that we are long on expectation, but short on preparation. And that is the key, that everything that is working against either restructuring of Nigeria or achieving autonomy for the regions have structures in place to enforce or impose their will. And we look at it from what is happening now. Those who say, okay, there are going to be no elections in Osun and Ekiti state. Okay, INEC comes around and says, this is the timetable for the elections. One of the major parties says, we are going to hold our primaries for the elections in this manner. Another is saying, okay, they are organizing their own thing. Those of us who are saying, not those of us, because I'm not saying so, those who are saying that there will be no elections are saying, okay, they want to go to court to stop it. Okay, so like you said earlier, I mean, you can go and file any motion in court. So the first thing is, when will the case be heard? Even if you file an urgent motion, yeah, they are, but they will still need this and that. They will postpone it until after the election is over. And after the election is over, they say, okay, well, the elections have been held. So what's your problem? I mean, on technical side, so that means, and it's been consistent since at least 1999. We shout, we do this, we do that, but we never have been able to make our demands a political or electoral issue. And that is the problem. That when elections are coming like this, everybody will start running. Hey, yeah, we want this, we want that, we want that. And then any politician like Atiku did in 2019, he declared for his presidency in Fufude language in Wono, their capital city, and then came to Ibadan and said, don't worry, when I become president, I will give you your autonomy. Does that make sense? So we have situations like that. So, and that's what we have been dealing with. So when elections come or are coming, we'll be running around with our expectations, but we will not have even made a dent on the political reality on ground. And that is our major problem. So yes, I expect Yoruba people to vote for autonomy when the referendum happens. When, not if, when the referendum happens. And of course, I will expect opposition from the people like Femi Falana and all that. But you see, the beauty of it is that the argument of the Falanas have no ground, because history debunks it, logic debunks it, our experience debunks it. So they have nothing to stand on. All they are probably, they expect that they will be given a podium to make their case, which is fine, but they have no case to make. We have a case to make. Unfortunately, we are not even utilizing it. That was why I said, Ilana and Professor Akintoye earlier on, that they are wasting a precious experience for whatever reason, because they are not utilizing their experience to address what needs to be done today.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll quickly now go to like the crux of, like I said, I was trying to build up
Yeah.
a platform. Now,
Thank you.
when you look at these issues that are happening between people that are supposed, and I say that with a sense of respect, people that are supposed to be the leadership of Yoruba movement for what is going to be beneficial to the people. If we are having a sort of so much rancor, should this be taken as a norm, or should we be careful of the impact this could have on Yoruba success?
Sorry, I didn't get the first part of your question. Should we be speaking as what?
No, what I mean is that should we consider this as norm, that in the course of any movement we will have rancor and disagreements and go,
Okay.
but considering the fact that we are already in 2022, we are looking at election right in front of us. Um, should we take these disagreements among people that are leaders, so to say,
Okay.
should we take it as a norm, or should we all start to have serious concern of the impact this could have on Yoruba success within or outside Nigeria, whichever way?
Unfortunately, it is the norm, and I use that advisedly. It is the norm in the sense that, since I have been trying to situate the present within the context of our past, so that we'll be able to draw the necessary conclusions. So if we do that, even with this, that's why I call it the norm. That let's even limit it to 1999. That at every election time, different agitations and this and that will come from different groups. They will fight each other. They will abuse each other. I think it was it not in 2015 or 2011? I don't remember when OPC broke up. And then there was a question of whether they should get contract from Jonathan to watch the pipelines and all that. And then they went on the demonstration in Lagos against APC and all that. So, and then it broke up into different factions and all. So you find that that's why I said again, because our expectations are not rooted in a political or electoral reality, we tend to react when elections are coming. And these politicians, they know what they want and they know how to get it. And not that they are correct too. I mean, theoretically they are not correct, but they know. So it is very easy for them to infiltrate different groups and things start happening and everybody will shout. Those who will make their money will make their money. Those who got left out will get left out. And then the elections will be over. A victor will be declared and things go on for the next 4 years. And then you start. So you can see a consistent pattern. That's why I called it the norm. Now, the question is, okay, we know it's the norm. Well, what are those who know it's the norm doing about it to change the narrative? Because it's one thing to know, it's another thing to be able to act on what you know. So, and that is the situation we find ourselves today, that with the way at every election time, they will ramp up tension. Oh, Nigeria is going to break. If we are not careful, this will be the end of Nigeria. We sense we are going on a precipice. Nigeria has no driver. The engine has knocked, and everything in between. And then the elections will come. Someone will be declared the winner. They will agree among themselves, and life goes on. And then after 2 years, another set of self-determination groups will rise up again and say, hey, we want this, we want that. Then it will continue on to the next election. And that's been a consistent pattern. So that's why one of the reasons why some of us said, look, we have to change this narrative. We have to devise a pathway to achieve what we want, to achieve our expectation. Not just state an expectation, but devise a way towards realizing it. That's why we came up with this Yoruba referendum thing, which was also an outflow from a previous effort. Because this problem that I mentioned had been identified by some of us since 1999. Even before all the things that happened afterwards. It was identified in 1999 and it was placed before certain Yoruba leaders in writing that this is what is going to happen. This is what Obasanjo is going to do. And he did it. This is the agenda for the Nigerian state. And this is what we must do about it. But no one listened to us. And things started happening and happening and happening until now. So it's not a, what do they call it? It's not a New Year prophecy or a New Year prediction. It's political reality. You don't need any prophecy for that. And we saw it, we recognized it, and we put it in writing, and we placed it before them. And they said we are just too radical. Okay, so what we are now, everything, it's not, when we talk about Yoruba referendum, it's not something that just fell from the sky. It's the culmination of a political reality. And so it has gone through its own stages and all that. But we thank God that we remain consistent, even though we are not, no one is listening to us at that time. But, so when we now say, okay, so let's make it the political issue in Yoruba land. And like you said, I mean, Governor Akeredolu said, where did Yoruba say this? One would have expected Professor Akintoye at that point to say, okay, fine, we have not decided. Oh yeah, let us decide. Let us have a referendum. Then Akeredolu will be forced to say, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something else. Or he will say, okay, yeah, let's organize one. At least we will know where he stands. And when Femi Falana is also saying, where did we? So instead of Femi Falana saying, where did we arrive at something, he should have said, look, there is a Yoruba referendum on ground. Oh yeah, let's do it. Let's campaign for it or against it. So, but every time you discover that instead of taking the bull by the horn, like they say, okay, we have not decided, but these people are saying, let us make a decision now. Oh yeah, everybody, for us. Nobody they won't say that, then they will start dancing around it. So that's the problem. That's why I said it's consistent. I mean, it's the norm when elections are coming for all these things to be taking place. Why? Because unfortunately, most of them they don't know they don't recognize what needs to be done. Let me put it that way. But those of us who recognize it will continue pushing it.
Okay, thank you very much. We will come back to that political solution to Yoruba self-determination topic.
Yes.
I know that at the first part we've spoken about some Yoruba leaders that are disagreeing among themselves and all that. But also in the past few weeks, we've had some groups coming together. We have it from report that about 57 Yoruba self-determination group they met and then to decide on what should be done. In their own opinion, they believe that the Yoruba people should, just like I think it happened during Jonathan, and of course also I think the same strategy was used for the current president, that the Yoruba people should have like a force behind one of the whoever is going to come up as the president. But then he has to be a president that is pro restructuring, irrespective of where the president comes from. Those 57 groups are saying that if we can be a force on anyone among those candidates that is pro restructuring, then we as Yoruba people or that group and their followers, we will support this person so that the person could restructure the country. Um, Looking back at history of things like these, what's your opinion about it?
Well, thank you. Again, this is not meant as a critique or, it's just my opinion. Looking back at history. Again, yeah, it's good to say we have 57 groups that will line up this and that. I gave the example of Atiku the other time. He said, he will restructure if he's going to be there. Since 1999, Afenifere had been looking up to anybody that becomes president to restructure. Everybody are looking for someone to be president who will now restructure. And when the person becomes president, they can do anything they want to do, like Jonathan did. And then they back to square one. Now, the difference between all those things and these 57 groups is that these 57 groups are saying they will mobilize for that person to become president. And that is the key. Now, if you cannot mobilize your own people to produce a governor in Osun or Ekiti. How in the world are you going to mobilize anyone to support a presidential candidate that will win anywhere? That is number one. Number two, let's assume that you are able to mobilize the entire Yoruba people to support anyone to become president. And the person does not succeed in the east or the north. And we know where the electoral votes are. So what happens to your mobilization? You know, the guy will fail or make a compromise with the east and the north, and they can tell him, look, drop your restructuring, we will support you. And the guy may accept or may not accept. So at the end of the day, you have mobilized the entire Yoruba people to a failed cause. That's why we are saying, instead of going, when you say you want to mobilize to support someone who is interested in restructuring, anybody can claim to be interested in restructuring. Everybody has even been claiming it, including Obasanjo, Buhari. They will say, okay, they will change it. Maybe let us restructure the judiciary first or do this and do that. So they have their own agenda. They have their own understanding of how to contain the agitations by embracing it. The question is, those of you that are mobilizing for restructuring, what agenda are you placing before them? So that it will not just be, okay, Lagbaja said this in support of restructuring, let us support him so that when he gets there, he will do restructuring. But you get to a point where you tell that Lagbaja, here is what we mean by restructuring, campaign on that basis, and let's vote for you. So that if the Lagbaja is from anywhere and then goes to the east to campaign, then he will say, look, when I get to president or whatever, you will conduct your own referendum to decide where you want to be. That's my program. I don't have any other agenda. He will go to the north and say the same thing. That is when you can confidently say you are supporting someone that is supporting the restructuring. But if you are not doing that, and for you to do that, you have to have the way to achieve your restructuring. That, yes, we recognize the Constitution is defective and blah, 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 and we are not asking you to just declare that the Constitution is useless. All we are saying is that when you get power, we also need the power to conduct this and that is what we are going to vote for you on. Now you can get there and then do otherwise, but we can work on that when the time comes. Of course, we know it won't happen. I'm just because nobody, no politician will contest for presidency and go about saying, when I get there, you will conduct this referendum. None of them will say that. We know it. So what we need to do is to be clear as to where we are and how we want to achieve whatever restructuring we want to achieve. And let anybody come and say yes or no to it. Because whether the person becomes president or not will not matter. Because the restructuring is an in-house issue. It's a house within the nations, it's a house within the region. And we are saying, on our own part, we are saying, yes, let our houses of assembly do this and do this and do that. So let the person come, support anybody that says, come, oh yeah, in House of Assembly, do this thing. That's all we need. So whether he becomes president or he doesn't become president, the motion is already on. And let him go to the East and tell their assemblies to do the same thing, unless the East says they don't want that kind or they don't want it, they just want to be president. And that's their own thing. And let him go to the North and Middle Belt and start agitating for that. You say, okay, say you want restructuring, let your people decide now. Let that be the campaign. Any candidate that cannot campaign like that is not for restructuring. It's as simple as that. So if 57 people are coming together, 57 groups are coming together and they don't have a pathway towards achieving restructuring, except to say that they will support anybody that advocates restructuring, it's like repeating history. And we know the history that is being repeated. And then, what was the saying again? When we repeat history, we are doing or whatever. So, but the point I want to make is this. Again, I'm not criticizing them. This is my own opinion. The point is to even put their feet to the fire, they must be given an agenda. It is when they accept your agenda and work on it and participate in it, that is when you can confidently say, yes, I can support this guy. Because he knows if he doesn't work on it, your support will be out. You will even fight the person. But all these, we have done that. We've been there before. Jonathan, even when he did his conference, even when he was doing his conference, one of his major confidants, the late, I've forgotten his name now. His name, the director of strategy. I've forgotten his name. He died, I think, before the election. And one of his major confidants, Colonel Tony Iyam. Iyam came when they were going all over the place. He said, and I'm quoting him verbatim now, Tony Iyam verbatim, that anyone that is setting up a conference that Jonathan is setting up has an agenda in his mind. That was Colonel Iyam of the famous Gideon Okaku, Tony Iyam. That's what he said. He said Jonathan has an agenda. He didn't say what the agenda was at that time. But the point is, when he was going around doing all that thing, the agenda could be anything. Yes, let me use it to drum up support so that I can win my election again. Or let them come out with something so radical that will dabaru everything and nobody will contest the election or anything. So they selected people to go to whatever conference, and then they went, and then the most critical issues, which is on political power, they now said that will be left for a future date. So the only conclusion one can reach from that agenda is that, yeah, people are clamoring for restructuring. Let us give them a bone to chew. So they threw the bone of the conference. Everybody came together. They started arguing among themselves and they reached an agreement. And then it was like, you see, now we have negotiated and we have agreed. All we need to do is to make it happen. So let me come back the second time and then I will do something about it. So so when we now get together and say that we have so many groups, X number of groups, and we are ready to support anybody that wants to restructure, let me put it that way, we must be able to put our own agenda for the person to accept. It's not for negotiation. We are for autonomy, and this is what we want to do, and this is what we want. If you accept it, we will take you around the whole country, around the whole region to campaign on it. Then you go to the next region and campaign on that platform. Then we know you are serious. Without that, let me put it that way. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you very much. The last segment will actually be looking at Yoruba referendum committees pathway and some of the activities. We'll come back. We'll have a shorter break now, and then when we come back, we'll be looking into that. So
thank you.
Do stay on with us.
Thank you.
Shipping and logistics. lóríṣiríṣi. Personal effect clothing food and stuffs. Láti Naija wọlú Amẹ́ríkà. Journalic here Chicago shipping and logistics bàbá ni. Oúnjẹ láti Áfíríkà lóríṣiríṣi. Dry meat, dry fish, báwo lẹ ṣe fẹ́ sí? We export goods láti Amẹ́ríkà wọ Naija. Ìròyìn ò tá fojú bẹ̀yìn ta Amẹ́ríkà. Ẹ̀yin ti New York, ẹ̀yin ti New Jersey. Ẹ kàn sí Journalic lórí email address. Nika Coca 27 àti Abuja.com Journalic Logistics bàbá ni.
bó ṣe máa jẹ́ nìyẹn ẹ̀yin tí New Jersey ẹ kàn sí wa ní Prince Street Newark New Jersey USA tàbí kẹ́pẹ́ wá sórí +19 0820558863 nílùú Èkó ń bí. Àdírẹ́sì wa ní nọ́mbà 20 Ẹ̀kọ̀rọ̀ Road Old Ọ̀tà Road Abúlé Ẹ̀gbá Lagos. Ẹ pè Jùmọ̀kẹ́ sórí +234-813-099-0915 tàbí Múyìwá sórí +234-814-659-1874 at Journalic. Ọ̀gá nìkan láwùjọ òkúta.
Thank you very much for staying on with us on OY Media Scotland. We'll be going around to the last segment of our interview with Alagba Femi Odedeyi. You are welcome back to the program, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right, so this is the last segment, and we'll be talking about Yoruba Referendum Committee's pathway and the activities. So, first of all, the question right from here would be you talk about a political solution to a political problem. You believe that the problem we have at the moment, and I'm talking about Yoruba, of course, Yoruba is not the only tribe or ethnic tribe in Nigeria, but then the situation has come to a position where almost like each ethnic tribe has to fashion out their own survival. So, and your organization believes that there should be a referendum, like taking power back to the people, for the people to decide what they want. You've mentioned on this program that this has nothing to do with any party, whether you belong to PDP or APC or APGA or Accord or Labour. It's got nothing to do. Even people that are not even involved in any politics, you are saying that there should be a situation where the Yoruba people are allowed to vote on how they want to live their life within Nigeria. Why do you think that is the most potent route to resolve the current challenges?
Thank you. Again, we situate it within history. There was a time under colonial rule, over time and the anti-colonial issues and stuff like that. there was an anti-colonial movement and all that, the Nigerian youth movement, and everything broke down. And the Awolowo went to Britain and then, formed the Egbe Omo Oduduwa. And then, of course, they knew it's a global Yoruba movement. And when the time for political activities presented itself, new opportunities in 1950-51, they formed the Action Group, the first political party in Nigeria. Why did they form the Action Group? Not simply for Yoruba people, because Egbe Omo Oduduwa was strictly for Yoruba people, but the Action Group went beyond Yoruba people and all that, because they knew that at that point, to effectively fight British colonialism, they needed political power. Now, in the world at that time, there were different methods being suggested. In 1950-51, the Chinese Communist Party took over power. That was just a year previously, 1949, after fighting for about 12 years. There were rumblings in Latin America. There were, all kinds of theories that were going on. Even in Africa, you had the Ghana experience, which Nkrumah called the positive action of the masses that enabled them to gain independence and all that. So there have been different ways, but now everything had to be contextualized. So within the Nigerian context at that time, the viable option open to them was to form the political parties with a decidedly clear objective. That was how the Action Group came into being. And for it to be effective, they had to get into the electoral process, participated in the election, and won the election. Actually, it was the misinterpretation that Zeke gave to the election that now created a problem between the West and the East. But that's another story. But I raised that historical experience to transform it into the present. That again, since 1999, we all know the situation in Nigeria. We all know it has to do with the political representation of the people or the regions or whatever we want to call it. We all know that military incursion into Nigerian politics was not aimed at addressing any fundamental problems, but in entrenching a particular paradigm. We all know it. We can cite examples. So now that things are coming to a head, or things have come to a head, we now have to look at the response that we should present. Now we have alternatives. You can say, okay, we are going to fight. We are going to fight the regime as they are doing in Ethiopia with the Tigray and the Ethiopian forces. But we also know that the Tigrayan people fought the military for over 20-something years and took over power before things started degenerating in that place. So they had the experience and all that. So within our own context, we now say, okay, since 1999, there had been a ding-dong between two different tendencies in the ruling elite, the PDP and the APC, or, the previous versions, and then culminating. So what do we do? How do we puncture that political sort of alliance? Let me put it that way, because if it is not APC, it will be PDP as the structure stands. So what we need to do is to now say, since we cannot fight and we are not advocating any fight or any violence, although, that's a different subject, we can take charge of the political situation. How do we take charge of the political situation? By creating our own political environment. How do we create our political environment? By making sure that we make our local area that is our region, the focus of our activity. How do we do that? We present a political alternative to the political establishment in our own land. We have, at this point, we have nothing to do with Nigeria or whatever it is they want to do. What we are saying, just like the action group won the election in 1951 into the Western region, which allowed the party to do whatever it did that we are now celebrating today. We need a similar effort in Yoruba land that will allow us to advance to wherever we want to advance to. So, and the albatross on our neck is the current political structure, which is represented by both any or either of the parties and their politicians. So we are now asking the people to put enough pressure, dragging them, screaming and kicking and all that, and they have even opened the door anyway, that when we say we have the Yoruba referendum contains everything that we need in terms of protecting and advancing the Yoruba quest. That when we have a Yoruba referendum, and hopefully, like I said, it's an expectation, they have the referendum and the referendum is a yes vote. That is all we need, because that empowers us, it validates us, and it legitimizes us to negotiate with Nigeria or anybody that we want to negotiate with. And that reduces the importance of the two political parties to dictate to us what they want. Like, for example, when we said we should choose our own representative to the central government, that we don't need anybody in Borno State or Kano State to tell us who we want as our representative. We are the ones to make that choice. And it is that is part of human liberation. That is part of decolonization, because the political system that was bequeathed to us at independence, it was still in favor of what they call the nation state. That is, you have a nation state is simply a nation that is like Yoruba nation that has a state that is governing it. But Nigeria is a multinational entity, so only one state cannot govern a multinational entity. Otherwise, it becomes an imperialist agenda. And that is why they are talking about Fulani hegemony and all the hegemonies and all the rest of it. So what we need is a multinational state. That is a state that contains the many nations, for Nigeria. So that's what we are saying, that it can be done. We can put enough pressure on our current people in power in Yoruba land to conduct the referendum. Akeredolu opened the door when he said, where did we... And so let's put it back to him. Okay, we have not decided anywhere. Okay, now that we need to decide, let us conduct the referendum. What do you say? Let him now come and say that's not what he meant, or wait until after. Let him say anything he wants to say. We know how to deal with it. But it will have become an issue that has to be dealt with. So that's why we said we have the referendum is a political program. It's a political project that can determine the fate of Yoruba land. And so far, with all humility, there has not been any counter to that issue. What we have been hearing from different quarters is, but will they do it? But when we don't engage them, how will we know whether they will do it or not? Or that, of course, asking the UN to come and conduct a referendum is not even, is a dead on arrival proposition. So let's go there. So that's why we are saying it's a political agenda that can affect any political party in Yoruba land, and by implication or extension, Nigeria itself. So, and that is what we need. Just like when Action Group came up with social, freedom for all, life more abundant, is applicable now, that we need something that will address our issues. And the only way we can address our issues is to have that thing that will allow us to represent ourselves. We don't need any party in Abuja, any of our political parties to have a center in Abuja before we decide what we want to do.
Yes,
We don't need it. So, and that dovetails into the Falana issue. If you say we want to import Nigeria into Yoruba, why don't you just let us have our own thing now, instead of having, maybe that's the logical implication of it. So even if you want fiscal federalism, then why can't we elect our own representatives on our own terms? So these are the issues that needs to be introduced or injected into the political atmosphere, that everyone has to, with between me and Professor Akintoye now, if Professor Akintoye tells Akeredolu, look, we want this referendum and stuff like that, most likely Akeredolu will listen to Professor Akintoye instead of listening to you. He can tell me, hey, who are you? Where are you from? I mean, that kind of, so that's what we are saying. So
okay. Thank you very much for that. We'll quickly go to you released in your bulletin number 11, where
yes,
you were giving a reference, no, a response to Chifolu Falaye's options.
yes,
Uh, Chifolu Falaye did mention that Yoruba should be concerned about where power shifts to in 2023. I mean, which I think we all agree with. But
yes,
he said, except there can be a sort of what is called constitutional crisis, whereby the terms of the president ends and there was no platform to elect another president. So he believes that if the current presidency terms ends on 29 May 2023, and there was no other president to take on, while we have governors in some of the states, he believes that that's a constitutional crisis, and those states could easily just morph into a federating unit. What's your opinion? I know you've given your opinion in the bulletin, but just for the purpose of our viewers, what do you think about that, sir?
yeah. Again, we look into history. It is even if that scenario emerges that okay, there's no election and the president will leave on May 29 and blah blah blah. History has recorded that something similar was about to happen. I think it was under Jonathan or Yaradua or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the assembly just came up with what they call the doctrine of necessity. Under the doctrine of necessity, they settled the matter one way or the other. So why I brought that up again is this, that using that as a backdrop, it is not possible for a vacuum to exist on May 29, 2023, because those who are in charge of the Nigerian state will ensure that it doesn't happen. How will they ensure it? They can come up with a doctrine of necessity and say, okay, since there are no elections, so we have this and this and that and that. This is how we are going to do it. And they will agree. They might bicker, but they will agree among themselves. The military can step in, and say, well, since the politicians cannot agree among themselves, so we need to keep order one way or the other, And then there's a precedent for that in 1966, when everything broke down, when they didn't know where Ironsi was or what happened to Ironsi, and the country was drifting, as it were, for 3 days, they got together and then did what they needed to do and put Gowon in charge. So to even expect such a crisis to take place and everybody will go their way or they will do something, is not going to happen. It's not good. It doesn't, political reality doesn't support it, either within our own history or with the history of If at the extreme, as was explained in the bulletin, if at the extreme everything broke down, then there will be warlords everywhere, like it happened in Libya. Everybody will take up and start fighting each other. And then the international community will start saying they are going to arrange this and arrange that. But that will not even happen. Why? Because Nigeria is part of a subculture in West Africa. And within the West African subculture, you have the Fulani that we are so much vehement against in Nigeria, ruling 4 countries in West Africa. Gambia, I think Guinea and some other, about 4 countries in West Africa. Now, the Fulani, Nigeria, and their cousins in the Niger Republic are banding together to create some kind of economic and political relationship. And then you throw in the anti-terrorist war in the Sahel and all the rest of it. So for that to take place, I mean, for a government not to exist in Nigeria would disrupt the entire West African architecture. And the international community is not going to allow that to happen. That is number one. Number two, and this is for the benefit of Yoruba nation agitators, the Fulani, where they have 4 countries already, and then you leave Nigeria up for them to have some slice of the territory. So what have you gained? So at the end of the day, the war will be against us. So rather than Tifala just hoping again that things will happen like that, we have the opportunity to make sure that it happens the way we want it to happen. That's why we called on Tifala to publicly endorse the Yoruba referendum. It would have been more profitable if Tifala threw his weight behind the demand for Yoruba referendum. All these oppositions of that we know this, even if at the end of the day there will be no president or there will be crisis in May 2023, because we will have had our referendum and created our own political environment, that will be our own response. That the product of the referendum will have preempted what will happen in May. So it's not going to be just expecting, okay, if everything collapses, everybody will go their own way. Everybody will not go their own way, because different interests will just come in and scatter everything in different directions. And we'll be left holding the bag, and we'll be holding demonstrations and rallies in New York and London, calling for Yoruba Nation now. So, but things don't work that way. That's why we made the call in that bulletin that it will be better if Chief Falai publicly endorses the Yoruba referendum. By the time you have people like Chief Falai, Chief Adebanjo, and all the rest saying, okay, telling Akeredolu, you are the chairman of the governors, you said, where have we decided? Oh yeah, let us decide on this referendum. You will see a change in the political dynamics, and things will start happening. So that if we have that referendum before then, regardless of what happens, whether it's a military takeover, whether there is no government, whether there is a government, we already have our own in place that we can use to address all those issues. That's it. That's the thing. And I don't know why people are running away from endorsing it publicly, but that's just it is what it is.
Okay. And that takes us to the next question. Of course, you've mentioned, and I think when I say we, I'm looking at, we've spoken about it, but there's still a section of the people that believes that maybe the reason people are not coming out to speak publicly is maybe some politicians are afraid, especially Yoruba politicians, that with this referendum, would they not close a lid on their political career?
Yes, even if they are afraid, That's why we have to put pressure on them. I say kicking and screaming. Let them be screaming, even if they're afraid. That's number one. Number two, whether they support the referendum or not, their career is in jeopardy, because for them to survive politically means they have to form alliances with non-Yoruba people. And those people will give them conditions that will be detrimental to their own people. So it's better for them to align with the aspirations of their people and forget about that alliance, or that the relationship with the aspirations of their people will even strengthen their hands when they are negotiating with those people outside Yoruba land. Because look, my people are behind me. There's nothing you can do about it. And this is where we are going. But without that, they will not be able to negotiate properly, because their allies will come down and have their own local people to rise up against them. And how the whole thing works. And then they will be fighting a wrong battle. So it is our responsibility to drag them along, kicking and screaming, and that doesn't mean they will follow, but at least we will do it. We will attempt it and make sure that we tell them. Everyone knows it. There's no way you can go to Kano or Borno and say you want their votes, and they will say, yeah, go and do anything you want, we will vote for you. No, they will tell you this is what they want. And this has been happening all through Nigeria's history. This is what they want. If you don't do it, we won't support you. So if you think that you will get it, and then the added advantage is when we put up all the pressure and they refuse to follow us, that also gives us an opportunity to disown them eventually. But that is not yet the point we are in. But that's a possibility. That the battle is not just, so so it's something that has to be done.
Okay, thank you. We're gradually coming towards the end of the program. We've spoken about Osun and Ekiti, gubernatorial election happening this year. What should the people be expecting from Yoruba referendum committee?
That's good. That's a good question. One, we want to make the Yoruba referendum the issue in those elections. So we are going to come out. We are going to, I don't know whether this is, because, we are working on, but we are going to come out with our own ideas how to do this. We are going to, challenge the politicians, the governorship candidates, the current governors, and the assemblymen. We are going to flood Osun and Ekiti. Flood in relative terms. So we are going to, let people know, posters and everything. We are going to get people to know that, look, this is what these people must do. In this, they must come out openly and say yes or no to the referendum. This is not a question of wait and letting me get to office, because all the instruments to conduct the referendum are there. We have the legislators in place. All they need to do is to pass the law for the referendum, and then the governors to assent, and then they can arrange to conduct the referendum. So these are things that can be done now. So if anybody is contesting on any party and says she has the interest of Yoruba people at heart, all they need to do is to say, yeah, what are we waiting for? Let's go for it. And I want to say this. It is an insult on us, on Yoruba people, for anybody in Yoruba land to be promoting the fact that he did some boreholes to provide water for us. 60 years ago, we had pipe-borne water in some of our environments. So for someone to come 60 years later to say, I have provided boreholes, It's an insult. So let us regain our humanity and tell these politicians, don't come and insult us. Yes, okay, they distribute money and rise and don't come and insult us. We are beyond this point. And we are saying we want to be able to establish our humanity because we are capable of doing it. So don't come and insult us with boreholes. So we are past that stage. So anybody that says anything about boreholes, just tell the person to go and anyway. That's my personal opinion. So what we are saying is we are going to let the people know that this election, Ekiti and Osun election, is about the Yoruba referendum, nothing else. Nobody can come and start talking about being able to make a state better because the states are not better. It's as simple as that. Since 1999 or when the states were created, we all know it. So nobody can come and say, I have the magic wand to create jobs, to do this. It's not possible. They're not going to do it. But the way to do it is when we have our political autonomy. So we are going to say this is the main issue is for this referendum. All other things are secondary. And that's what we are going to embark upon. And we are working on that. And very soon, people will see us.
Okay.
That is Yoruba English. People will see. People will
I
see.
understand. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. And the other part we'll look at quickly is the issue about census.
Yes.
Because it's one of the things you've spoken about in the past. And
Yes.
the government is planning to conduct another census this year,
Yes.
which we believe will also be like a tool towards the election.
Yes.
You've mentioned about the current census figures being bended towards one section of the country, and that even if another census should be done, it should be a proper one.
Yes.
You do not also, except I got you wrong, you do not seem also to repose that much trust in the current federal government to conduct a fair census.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so, what are the implications of the census uh, if it's conducted, and how could the Yoruba, because we're talking about the Yoruba now, what step could the Yoruba take to ensure that if the census takes place, the Yoruba land is properly represented? That is one. And secondly, if it's not going to be a fair one, um, what can they do? I know you've mentioned this point, some of these points, but just to get some clarity. Uh,
Yes.
what can Yoruba people do to ensure that the population from other ethnic groups will not become a deciding factor for what is going to happen in Yoruba land?
Yes. Thank you. That's a very apt question, and it strikes at the heart of what we have been saying. And again, we will look at history and situate our responses within the history. We do know the census in 1952 was used to put the NPC in power, and the one in 1962 was rejected. The one that was done in 1963 was also rejected. The one that was done under Obasanjo now overturned the logic on its head and placed more people in the north than in the south. And like you said, the census will be used to create a demographic shift in Nigeria that will not favor us. I think it was in 2019, I think run up to 2019 or so, that Jonathan came to Lagos or Ibadan and said that the Igbo are more populous, that the Yoruba are a minority in Ibadan and Lagos. And so put all these things together, and then we are saying that there's a hegemonic, there's an attempt at entrenching a hegemony in Nigeria, and that hegemony wants to conduct a census. Of course, the result is obvious of what the result will be. Now, the historical part of it, which is not too far off, was when Obasanjo was doing his own census, Lagos state government carried out its own census. When Lagos state government carried out its own census, of course, the figures were vastly different. And the Lagos census fully reflected, because they stated the parameters about how the census was carried out and everything like that. But, before that, you remember, it was one of the censuses or the population thing that made them create the local governments. And then they gave Kano State more local governments than Lagos State or something like that. So, and then they used that to distribute money and all they are doing. So the census has been used over time for a demographic change to favor the hegemony. So now coming back to the Lagos. So Lagos did its own, but none of the other Yoruba states followed suit. So Lagos State was left in isolation. And, I think they just worked it out among. So now that another census is coming in 2022 to be controlled and organized by a hegemony, definitely the result is already clear, either electorally or even economically. So what do we need to do about it? Again, that's why we are talking about the referendum. That one, it is only the peoples in their regions that must conduct their own censuses. Well, a census is essentially a tool for development. But once it crosses the line and is no longer used for development, but for a demographic change, it becomes a political issue. And then it must be tackled politically. So the first thing is the census must be conducted by the people or the nations that are concerned, number one. Number two, how to get this done? That means the people must get political legitimacy to conduct their own census. And that's why, again, we are talking about the referendum. That if we are able to conduct our Yoruba referendum, we will take care, it has taken care of the census, because all we need to do is to conduct our own census. And then, again, because the referendum is a direct response to the limitations of the 1999 Constitution, which includes the census. So once we are able to have the referendum, we are positioning ourselves to reject even the conduct of the census, not even the results, that they cannot conduct census in Yoruba land. We will conduct our own census and submit it to the center, let everybody do whatever they want to do. So that is one of the more strategic necessities for the referendum. So when we project the referendum, it's not just a question of political correctness. It's a survival methodology that if we don't have it, we won't have the legitimacy to contest the hegemony. And that is what is needed at this point. So we are faced with all sorts of storms, the census, the continuous attempt to create the waterways control, and all kinds of stuff like that. And then the political shenanigans that they are doing among themselves. So we have our work cut out for us. It is left for us to seize it and utilize it for our own benefit, or let it slip through our fingers. I hope it doesn't slip through our fingers.
All right, thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of the interview for today. Thank you very much. And I always want to give maybe 1 minute or two because I think it's quite very important to also
Yes.
speak directly to the people. We're at a critical junction.
Yes.
And if we look at some of the things we've looked at in the course of this interview, we have areas where people are disagreeing. We have areas where maybe some people are following some path which we believe might lead to nowhere. But also, we also have some other organization meeting together to look at the way forward for the Yoruba nation. But vis-a-vis one that wants to depend on a promise by a candidate which has not worked for us. So I'll leave you just about one or 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Bring life to the viewers.
Well, thank you very much. That's everything that I can say has probably been said or been said. But the most important thing is to always let history judge us, not even ancient history, recent history. That have we passed through this stage before? What was the effect? If we have and we know the effect, and some people are still pushing it, then we need to develop an alternative. And that is what this whole thing is all about. That yes, there's nothing that is happening now that we have not passed before. Whether it's presidential elections, we know what happened to Awolowo, we know what happened to MKO. So even if it doesn't happen to the next Yoruba president, we know he's not going to be given the powers to reverse everything that has been taking place. So we all know that. But the question is usually, what do we do? And we have been able to package the Yoruba referendum as a solution. And my hope is that by the time we come back on air next week, 2 weeks time, when I said people will see us, that we have been able to show ourselves to the people. Show to the grassroots, as they say. We intend to intervene and inject the Yoruba referendum into the political atmosphere, at least in Osun and Ekiti states, and expect a response from all the political gladiators. And if they don't respect, they can choose to ignore it. Well, that's their own prerogative. So what I will say, in effect, like you said, to paraphrase you, is that we are at a critical juncture. If we miss it in 2022, Nigeria will continue to rumble on, but will the Yoruba allow themselves to rumble on with it? And we have a choice. It's not a question about living on. We have to defeat the hegemonic forces in Nigeria. Like I said earlier on, it's not just a question of living or no living, because the whole concept of the West African sub-region is tied to the resolution. So those forces have to be defeated in Nigeria for any change to happen in West Africa, and by extension, the entire African continent. They must be defeated. And one of the ways to defeat them is this Yoruba referendum. Not that the Yoruba referendum will take over, not that we are saying we are going to take over power in Abuja, but we are saying the Yoruba referendum will change the political configuration and the nature of political contest in Nigeria in such a manner that the unitarist forces will be defeated. It's as simple as that. We have to defeat them, and defeat them decisively, legitimately, and validly. And we can do it. And that is the charge I will tell everybody, that the battle starts with us within Yoruba land to ensure that the Yoruba referendum takes place in 2022. And that will be the road, the starting point to the defeat of the hegemonic forces in Nigeria. And there's no other way out. And we have said it, whether they come up with a military coup, whether they come up with doctrine of necessity, whether they come up with a lame duck Yoruba president, whether they kill any Yoruba presidential aspirant, whether they do anything they want to do, by the fact and virtue that we have the Yoruba referendum, and the results are positive, we already have a solution. It's already a solution to every other thing because it strikes at the heart of unitarism. And that is my charge, that we should work towards its implementation to make sure it happens in 2022. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Alagba Femi Odedeyi. We will be seeing you in 2 weeks, God's willing. And of course, you've told us that by that 2 weeks, you'll be able to show us
They
proof
will
that
see us.
they will now see us right
Yes.
on there. So we thank you, and we also pray that your path will be blessed,
Amen.
because it's not about individuals. It's actually about taking Yoruba out of slavery. Some will call it self-imposed slavery, but well, even if Yoruba enter into self-imposed slavery, they can also enter into self actualized freedom. And I
Yep.
think that is the path we're working towards. So, our regards to the family and, of course, the rest member of the Yoruba referendum committee.
Thank you.
Also. So, viewers, thank you very much for staying on with us throughout this program. Remember, we're back here on Saturday at 3 p.m. That's Saturday at 3 p.m. And we're also here on Sundays at 6 p.m. Also, you can now advertise your businesses, organizations, and of course, events with us. The number to send your message to is WhatsApp, and that is +44 744 889 7494. Get across to us, and we promise you, you'll get the very best. So for now, that is me signing out. Do stay safe, and until I see you on Saturday, God bless.
Àjọ Manic Shipping and Logistics. We export household item lóríṣiríṣi. Personal effect, clothing, food and stuffs. Láti Naija wọ̀lú Amẹ́ríkà. Journalic here Chicago shipping and logistics bàbá ni. Oúnjẹ láti Áfíríkà lóríṣiríṣi. Dry meat, dry fish, báwo lẹ ṣe fẹ́ sí? We export goods láti Amẹ́ríkà wọ Naija. Ìròyìn ò tá fojú bẹ̀yìn ta Amẹ́ríkà. Ẹ̀yin ti New York, ẹ̀yin ti New Jersey. Ẹ kàn sí Journalic lórí email address. Nika Coca 27 àti Abuja.com Journalic Logistics bàbá ni.
bó ṣe máa jẹ́ nìyẹn ẹ̀yin ti New Jersey ẹ kàn sí wa ní Prince Street Newark New Jersey USA tàbí kẹ́pẹ́ wá sórí +19 0820555863 nílùú Èkó ń bí àdírẹ́sì wa ní nọ́mbà 20 Ẹ̀kọ̀rọ̀ Road Old Ọ̀tà Road Abúlé Ẹ̀gbá Lagos ẹ pè Jùmọ̀kẹ́ sórí +234 813 099 0915 tàbí Múyìwá sórí +234 814 659 1874 at Journalic ọ̀gá nìkan láwùjọ kúta.